Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and I'm gonna wrap up this week with another show and tell, a little bit of a review, and maybe even a mini project having to do with my figure collection. I've been really enjoying sharing this personal hobby with you guys and taking you along the journey of collecting, posing, photographing, and then also doing minor modifications for how I love to display them in my current office setup. And everyone's is different, and this is just as I've been redoing my office, I've been learning things I've wanted to do with this. So let me first of all show you this awesome figure right here. So this is an Iron Man Mark III at quarter scale. Last month was my birthday, and I bought this for myself as a treat, a birthday present for myself. And I could not be more pleased with how gorgeous this is. It's not die cast, but it has a great heft. I think the paint finish here just is so nice. It captures that kind of race car hot rod red that that Tony Stark designed for himself in the first Iron Man movie. And everyone has their favorite Iron Man armors from the comic books and from the MCU. My favorites from the MCU are the Mark III, the Mark VII from the first Avengers film, and then the Mark 46, 47 that you saw in Civil War and Spider-Man Far From Home, the last of the non-nanotech armors before we got to Infinity War and Endgame. And I think that really in that first movie, in Iron Man, with the Mark III, to Jon Favreau and the team at Legacy, really, they nailed it. They captured what Iron Man looks like from the comics and brought it into the physical world with a practical and effects-driven armor that just, it looks so much like the Adigranoff Extremis armor, that modern take on Iron Man from the Warren Ellis run that I really loved. And so this is just one of my favorites. One of those things when I first saw it on screen, I'm like, that's Iron Man. And they've since improved on that, of course. But enough waxing poetic about Iron Man armor. This, of course, is Hot Toys, quarter scale, has all the kind of incredible detail, magnetically connected parts, extremely posable. I have it in this kind of contemplative, Hamlet-like pose. Incredible portrait detail of Robert Downer Jr. here. One of the reasons I like quarter scale is that incredible portrait detail. Comes with a bunch of accessories. You can swap out a more battle damage look. I have him holding his faceplate here. But one thing that's missing, as you can see, is the lighting, which is such an important part of the Iron Man armor series. And so the way I have my cabinet set up in my office, just off camera here, there are a bunch of IKEA cabinets, and I have a bank of lights mounted above them that almost casts like a street light, like a street lamp type of lighting. It's lit from the outside through the glass onto the toys behind it, which gives it a little bit more of a dramatic look, in my opinion. I went for that over having like LED strips on the inside, which plenty of people, it's a great look, I think, for a Kallax, for like the clear glass of the Detolf, and it really helps illuminate the figures all around from what you have inside. But I wanted something maybe a little more moody for my office. And to complement that LED bank of lights are potentially the characters themselves. These have LED lights built in. Now, one of the unfortunate disappointing things is that all of those LED lights run off of tiny batteries. All of them come with a set of batteries. They're finicky to install. You have to unscrew the battery compartments, kind of wedge in 2 or 3 little cells in series, flip the switch on, and the worst part is they don't last very long. They're not made for long-term display purposes. They're made to flip on, to take a couple photos, do a repose, but then, over time, you're gonna have to buy new batteries, and that just becomes a pain. I want something a little more ambient. And a bunch of you have asked, and collectors have always asked, is there a way to have these lights powered on indefinitely through a wired power supply or, a battery pack, a USB battery pack? And the short answer is yes, but there's no getting around the fact that you're still going to need to use those battery compartments, use those leads, and yes, you can replace those batteries with power lines, but you're going to have the wires exposed. Like we're not going to go into the articulation and drill little holes in the compartments to wire through the entire figure to have a power supply plug in at the bottom. That's just not practical, and I don't think even possible the way these are designed. And so you're gonna have to have wires stick out from the helmet, from the back, from all the places where the battery compartments are supposed to be hidden. And for me, I think that's okay, especially if you're talking about Iron Man armor. I mean, the in the comics, in the movies, baby Tony Stark's running on diagnostic. The way I have it posed, he's not necessarily in like a flying action pose. You know, maybe he's plugged in and doing and connecting it to a power supply or computer. I mean, even Iron Man 3, we had him running through holding a car battery plugged into his Mark 42 armor. So it's, you know, it fits the kind of headcanon, and I think you can still hide some of the wires if you wanted to. And there are a few kits out there that will usually do that. So I actually picked this up and we're gonna be trying this today. This is called the Soap Reactor. It's from a company called Soap Studios based out of Hong Kong. And they make essentially an alternative power supply that replaces the batteries in the 6-scale Hot Toys and quarter-scale Hot Toys figures, taking what's essentially in here and then allowing you to plug them into an external power supply. So let's break open the package and see what you get in this box. This kit here costs about $65. There is a $45 version as well with a fewer features, and I'll talk about that. But for 65 bucks, what you get is essentially this pack right here. This is the Soap Reactor. And it's about the size of a USB battery pack, so it's a little bigger than I expected. It'll definitely take up some space in your cabinet, but you can probably hide it behind the figures here, but less so if you're using a glass case. But let's look around it and you'll see, yeah, there are 8 ports on the back here and then 4 on the side here that provide power output. So essentially, you have 4.5 volts and 0.03 amps across 8 here. Basically, you have 8 batteries of the small cell variety, and then 4 here for AA or AAA battery alternatives if you have model kits or any toys that need those. Power in is through a plug here. It actually does not include a wall wart, so you'll need to buy one either from Amazon or they sell one for about $9. That's, you know, pretty good price. And there's also the option of USB as well. This is actually USB out because you can tether these and chain a few of them together, and they sell a USB cable for about $2. But also, because you can chain them, it also works as USB in as well, and so you can power this over a USB battery pack, which is actually what I'll probably be doing. This $65 version has not only this Soap Reactor itself, but also has a wireless remote control. And this is kind of an interesting remote control. There are no buttons on here. There's just a battery compartment itself. Uses your standard kind of flat 2032 battery, but it's kind of gesture based. So you pick it up and you kind of rotate it and kind of do a little bit of a flick of a wrist, and that actually activates the power. This higher cost kit also comes with the battery replacements. So that's what these are. These plug into each of these ports and fit into the battery components. And it comes with 4 of them, 3 of them of the smaller cell battery variety and 1 in the larger variety. So I'll open one of these to show you what it looks like. So as we untangle this, you can tell this is pretty thin wire. It's pretty high gauge and pretty good length as well. There's probably at least 2 feet here, maybe even 3 feet total in terms of length of wire. But on one end, this is the plug that plugs into the power pack here. And then the other side toward the end, this is where it splits, and you can actually see, again, two very thin pieces of wire. They're protected from each other, so they're not going to interfere. And this is the battery replacement. So this is about the thickness of 3 of the tinier cell batteries. 3 of those, same diameter, and designed to perfectly fit inside a battery compartment. So let's give a quick demonstration of that. I have here, this is a 6 scale Iron Man Mark 7 head, and I'm gonna open that up. You can see there's a tiny battery compartment above the head there, and it says on top it uses 3 LR621s, which is the smaller type. The 621 is basically the equivalent of the LR621 or 521. For this head, I've already installed the batteries, so give you a sense of how bright it is. There you go. And then let's pop those out. There you go, 3 tiny cells here. And in its place, once we match the polarity, springy side is positive. It fits pretty snugly in there. So let's do a quick test. And then what I'm gonna do here is actually plug it into USB power with just a standard off-the-shelf USB battery pack. Flip on the switch to power. You can see there's a little bit of a blue light that illuminates. There's power. And then flip this, it's on. And there you go. So yeah, works. It lights up, no problem. Same brightness. But of course, you're going to have the wires exposed. And then what I would do is I would just take that same battery cover, put it back over, and then cover it up. And to give you a sense, the wires are thin enough that they're not going to catch on the seam, but they will be exposed. And then you can kind of, if you wanted to, you would maybe put some tape on there to hide it if you wanted to hide the wires. Of course, with this arrangement, I'd leave the power switch inside the helmet flipped on, as well as in any part of the character, and then just turn the reactor here on and off. So there you go. And while that's powered on, I'm going to do the same for the quarter scale head here. Interesting. So the kit here comes with 3 of the smaller battery replacements, and they're kind of fixed length here. So while they fit perfectly inside, a helmet that requires 3 of the small cells, sometimes the compartments only require 2, and so I suspect this won't fit in that. In the same way, this is the larger battery. It's supposed to be the LR41 or 44, and this doesn't actually fit inside this quarter scale battery compartment. Maybe more designed for example, the arc reactor chest battery packs for 6 scale figures. But not to worry, because you're supposed to buy more of these anyway. And so they also sell these additional battery replacements. And what's nice about these, so we'll go with the LR41 for example, is that they're not a fixed length. They actually come with a spacer. So as you can see, it's the same design where it has your plug that goes into the soap reactor, your battery alternative, and this one is actually smaller than the one that came with the kit. So this will better fit inside here, and if I needed to, it actually comes with this spacer here. And that spacer allows this battery to essentially fit into a larger compartment where it would need to fit into. So that's pretty nice. And let's actually put this inside. All right, so we have both of these helmets lit up, running off of wired power. And you can see with each helmet design, with the 6 scale, it's a little bit easier to hide the wires since they come out of the back. The 1/4 scale can be a little tougher because it basically, the seam is right at the edge of the faceplate. So it's either come out of the top or you'll have to kind of sneak it around the side. So that's the basic functionality of the Soap Reactor. Clearly works here. Pricing wise, just this is $45 US, and you'll need to spend $9 if you want to attach it to AC power. If you want to use USB, it's a $2 USB cable, and then each of these battery replacements is basically $5. So it does add up because some of these figures have 6, 7 different compartments, and that's why the kit that I got, which comes with the 4, I think is actually a pretty good value. But next up, I'm going to take these batteries out and rewire it so we can actually get this Mark III 1/4 scale all lit up. Okay, time for a check-in. First of all, things are going pretty well with what I've already been able to install. And I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, he's lit up right here. There's actually some really nice blue light as well coming from around the seams of the armor. Really, really dig that. Gives it extra dimensionality. And then in the back, you can see these wires. Yeah, they stick out, but again, part of the storytelling of him charging his armor, running through some diagnostics. That's totally fine, or I could totally hide these coming out the back. Now, notice that the battery compartments here are actually at 1/4 scale pretty big, and the issue I'm running into now is the batteries, the battery replacements that I'm using aren't big enough, even with the included spacers, to create the contacts to fill up the entire volume of that battery compartment. So, for example, this is the larger size battery, and it's perfect for 6 scale, but at 1/4 scale, I need 2 of the included spacers, and so I quickly ran out of those spacers to actually have this pressure fit inside the cavity. Now, I did buy a bunch of extra one of these smaller ones, though, like these, and I have an idea. I think what I'm going to do, because this as a battery, is just 2 points of contact, positive, negative side. They're not touching. There's some insulation around it. You see right there, the blue insulation. What I think I can do is I can just disassemble this and create a larger battery replacement from the smaller one. So I'm going to take it apart, make sure I keep the wires separate, and then using just a styrene dowel, I can then hopefully create and measure the size of the battery compartment, and then affix each of these ends onto the sides of that. Wrap it all up, and then have that nice pressure fit battery, and that will actually salvage this operation. So I think that's gonna work. Let's go try it. Okay, so what I've created here is essentially my own spaced out battery. I took one of the smaller batteries, something that was made for to replace three of these tiny batteries, disassembled their arrangement, which really was just some uh, plastic and then another piece of plastic in between, cut a piece of styrene and then glued the two ends to the styrene. And the power draw is going to be the same. So I'm going to put this and test it now into the compartment, and hopefully it'll work. I mean, as you're able to see how the anatomy of these battery replacements work, it's not too difficult to imagine how you could make your own. I mean, they're not too expensive. They're $5 each from Soap Studio, but you could totally make your own with just two pieces of high gauge wire, and you can create your own contacts by buying some small sheet copper, punching them out, and then creating the spacer and kind of gluing it all together, just like I'm doing here, to create the appropriately sized battery for your battery compartments. All right, so there you have it. I have all of the battery replacements, the wired batteries now installed. And, you know, as I said in the very beginning, you can't get around having the wires exposed. I could kind of tuck them and wire them behind, but there are going to be places where the battery compartments are going to be in the front of the characters. So, you know, I'm going to embrace it, lean into it. I really like that for this one. My preferred way to display him is to have the internal components a little bit exposed as well. So it kind of all blends into that story of this is Iron Man Mark III in the middle of a diagnostic. Really, really fun project. The Soap Reactor links to where you can get it is below. Like I said, the kit is $65 if you want 4 batteries included, as well as the wireless remote, and it's $45 if you don't want that. And I think it's worth it. I think if you're going to spend, you know, several $100s on a figure like this, north of $500, spending $50 to $100 to get it dedicated lit up and to make it something that I'm going to love looking at in my display case is worth it. And I did like that I could tweak and, you know, problem solve around getting the batteries to fit and making my own little custom batteries as well, which I might do because I have some extra power slots on here. There are 8 slots and I'm only using 5 of them here. So I might as well light up some figures next to this as well. But thank you so much for watching. Links to everything I mentioned will be in the description below. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.